Hello everyone and welcome back to the Geek channel. Today will be first of all I would like to apologize in advance for all the words that I may mistakenly speak or all the stuttering that I might do. That's because I'm getting my braces done and it's kind of changed my face shape, so it becomes very hard to really form words. And sometimes I misplace words or misspeak some words, and sometimes I intermix some words, so there can be a little bit of communication gap today and maybe in the few more upcoming videos, so please bear with it. So now we're starting our UPSC series. I know I've already made a video on it previously, but we're starting it all over again because I think that the previous one wasn't good enough a start. So we'll just and this time I found a very good basics to start with. So we'll start our UPSC series anew, and in this new UPSC series, or you can just say UPSC series lecture 1 chapter 1 part 1, we'll be covering Indian polity. So today we'll be covering Indian polity from M. Laxmikant, and we'll be studying chapter 1 historical background. I tried every way, but I could not find any way to download M. Laxmikant's PDF format for free, of course. So I just took some pictures and then pasted them likewise. I hope that it's visible though. I'm recording the video in 1080 pixels, so I think that the character should be visible. Anyways, I've already read the first chapter, at least half of it to say, and it took me at least 3 to 4 days to create very finely fabricated detailed notes on it. So once you've read the notes, you don't need to go anywhere else or read from anywhere or any other source. At least I believe so, that you won't need to, but still it's best to read from several sources. So today we'll be covering chapter 1 historical background. Now, what is this chapter about? Let me give you a brief overview of what the whole chapter is about. So this chapter is about the historical background of our Indian political system. Of course, in Indian polity, we talk about the Indian political system, right? How our governments are formed, how our people are ruled, how different policies and how our constitution works, and everything. All of it that is related to Indian political system, right? All of this constitute the political system of India. So what is this historical background chapter about? This is about how our Indian political system, our current, or you can say contemporary Indian political system came into being. Like we know that we took several things in our constitution from the constitution of many other countries, right? So this chapter talks about how our current political system is borrowed from the British political system, and how the several acts, the several kinds of acts that the British threw upon our Indian system in order to govern it more efficiently actually helped shape our current political system, and how so many things we have taken from all those acts, all those you can say all those acts and regulations that the British put during the colonization of India. So this is what it briefly is about. And now I'll be reading. I won't read from the book, I won't read from these pages are completely for your convenience, so that you can, if you do not wish to afford the book or do not have the book, you can just pause the video and read it from here. I've already made notes and I'll be reading from my notes. I'll just zoom over this once so that you can stop it whenever you wish and read them. Okay, so in this way you don't need to actually buy the book, you can just read it from here. Okay, done. So like I said, I'll not be reading from the book, I'll be reading directly from my notes that I've created. So let's start it. And of course I'll be providing the notes in the in PDF format if I can, in the description. So starting now, most of India's current political system is borrowed from the British political system. The British first set foot in India in 1600 in the form of East India Company. The East India Company had monopoly in Britain to be the only British company to trade with India, presented to them through a charter signed by Queen Elizabeth I. So this we all of are aware of, that the East India Company, officially known as the English East India Company. So the book tells us that they came to us, the British, where for the very first time they came to us in the form of English East India Company. It means that it was the first no British person had ever set foot in India before this, before 1600. Like no individual had come, and the first time they came, they came in the form of a company to trade with India, and they had a charter with them. A charter is nothing but it is a kind of an official document that defines the rules or regulations of a particular thing. So in this way, the regulations here were that this English East India Company, they are the sole company in Britain that can trade with India. So this is what the charter actually said. The charter said that the English East India Company can be the only company in Britain who can trade with India, and no other company is allowed to do so. It's like a kind of official order, you can say. Alright. So moving on, they're saying that in 1765, the company, which until now, from 1600 to 1765, the company had only been trading. Right, been trading, or maybe been waging wars with other companies and all that, whatever shit the company was already doing. But after 1765, it actually gained Diwani rights. So what is Diwani? Diwani is tax or finance collecting. After searching through several sources all over the internet, through so many dictionaries, the best I could form of the word Diwani, the meaning of the word Diwani, I could get as close to was tax or finance collection. So Diwani rights means rights to collect tax or finance. Not finance in this case, obviously. In this case, it would be tax. So Diwani rights means rights to collect taxes. However, this goes a little bit more deeper than it, and we'll cover it now. So British rule is basically divided into two parts. First is the company rule, that is from 1773 to 1858. Now you must be wondering that if they had already gained the rights in 1765, so why isn't the rule? Why didn't they start ruling in 1765? Why is it given the period 1773 to 1858? Frankly, to be honest, I have no idea why it is so. But I guess a little bit of why it could be so, because 1773 was the first time when the British government actually recognized the company's political power in India. So before this, the British government, like, okay, they are ruling, we don't care, it's not written on paper, so it's not official that they are ruling. They're like they can say that a person takes bribe, right? Everybody knows that people take bribes, right? But it's not written on paper. I mean, until a person has actually been caught taking bribe, the government does not recognize that the person is taking bribes. Or let's say that let's say that there's a person, there's a village, and there's a really powerful person there who has a lot of money and monetary strength, and he practically rules over all the people there. But the government is obviously higher than him, and the government does not recognize him as the ruler or the sarpanch of that village or something like that. But when he wins the elections, or when he goes through some particular official procedure, then he is officially recognized to be the ruler of that place. So in this same way, the British company before 1773 was ruling indirectly over the Indian land. It was not officially, even though all the Britain knew that the company was actually ruling there, but it was not written in the papers. It was not written officially, and that is why the official rule of the company is said to be starting from 1773. However, the company had been ruling from 1765 and maybe even before that, but the official time span or time limit that started of the company's rule was from 1773. That is why, according to the official documents, the company rule is recognized from 1773. So I hope it is clear now. Actually, the thing is that I too didn't notice it, why it was written 1773. Just now, while describing it to you, I noticed that the company rules is actually said to be from 1773, whereas the company was already ruling from 1765, and of course before that too. So moving on, the second part of the British rule is the Crown Rule. The Crown Rule is from 1858, obviously after our revolt of 1857, after the Sepoy Mutiny, till our independence 1947. The Crown Rule is very easy to remember. You just need to pay attention to the Company Rule. Company Rules, and Company Rule also, you need to just remember the date 1773 only, because it's obvious that it ends in 1858. So the second part you don't need to remember, only the first part, 1778. Sorry, 1773. through the Battle of Buxar. Now, why 1765? Because in 1765 happened the Battle of Buxar. Through the Battle of Buxar, the East India Company, formerly known as the English East India Company, gained the Diwani rights of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha in the form of Treaty of Allahabad, which was signed between Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and Robert Clive. So what happens is that the British had been trading with the Mughals, but now the Mughals became weaker. Actually, there's a little bit of more historical background to it. So Aurangzeb had a fight with this Robert Clive. I don't remember if it's Robert Clive or some other person, but the Mughals and the British East and the English East India Company had a battle waged between them. And in that, Aurangzeb won and defeated the East India Company, and the East India Company had to suffer had to submit a prize, some prize of, I don't know, maybe 1.5 lakh rupees, about I think 350 million in today's currency. So the British were abiding their time. They had this deep grudge against the Mughals now. So when the Mughals became weak after Aurangzeb, the English East India Company started asserting its authority, and Shah Alam was a weak ruler. So the English East India Company started asserting its authority, and started taking charge or starting asserting its dominance over Shah Alam too, which obviously infuriated him, and he decided to wage a war. But he had become so weak; he was a weak ruler. His empire has almost been. It means it had been divided into so many several parts, and of course the Nawabs of Bihar and Orissa, they also felt a kind of danger from the East India Company. So all these three Nawabs, the Nawabs of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, they decided to get together and fight the British. And I think the British troops were about 10,000, somewhere it's written as 17,000, but the collective troops of the three Nawabs were 40,000, but still they were defeated. It's said that the military coordination between the troops of the Nawabs was very poor, whereas the English East India Company had excellent military coordination between them. So they were defeated in this Battle of Buxar. The three Nawabs of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa, they formed a group, they came together to fight the East India Company, and they lost. And the Mughal Emperor, it was Shah Alam II, the Mughal Emperor, he was the Nawab of Bengal, I think. So he was forced to sign this treaty, the Treaty of Allahabad, with Robert Clive. And this treaty practically made the English East India Company rulers of Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. So up until now, they were just trying to assert their authority indirectly. They were trying to assert their dominance through maybe some monetary, they would provide some money to the court officials of the Nawab, or they would try to force the Nawab into altering some rules. So they could only assert the dominance, but now they didn't need to assert it. Now they were practically rulers of this place, and they would directly order the Nawab. Previously they were trying to force him through manipulative means or something like that, but now they could directly order the Nawab to do whatever the company wished. And so this obviously finished, completely annihilated any competition that the East India Company might have had in these three areas, because now they were practically rulers. So they threw away all the other companies there, and they ordered the Nawabs that your presidencies, your providences, they would buy goods and they would trade only with the East India Company, just to increase their profit, of course, because since now they are rulers. The various British, so we won't go into much detail about this because it is about Indian polity, not Indian history. So moving on, the various British acts passed in India that helped to shape independent India's political system are as follows. So I've already given a list of all of this into my notes, so I won't repeat all the acts that are, but we'll discuss the acts one by one. In this video would be only half of it. There would be a second part to this, where I would cover the crown rule. In this part, we would only cover the company rule. So the first act that came was the Regulating Act of 1773. So the first step taken, this was the first step taken by the British government to control and regulate or check the affairs of the company in India. So before this, the company had free reign. The British government did not care about what the company did in India, but this was in 1773. through this act, the British government set some boundaries for the company, and it was the first time that the British government actually recognized in paper officially that the company has not only trading that the company is not only trading over Indian territories, but it is actually practically ruling over them. So it is not trade anymore. It does not only have commercial it is not only practicing commercial business there, it is also practicing its political powers. Recognize the political and administrative functions of the company, that is indirectly considered India as a colony. So this was the first time when the British government indirectly, not directly, not in paper, not in official way, but it indirectly considered India as its colony, because through this act the company is saying the British government is saying that this company is ruling over India. And who does the company belong to? The company belongs to the British government, right? So if the Indian territories belong to the company and the company belongs to the British government, so in this way indirectly the Indian territories obviously belong to the British government, right? So in this way the British government indirectly now considered India as its colony. So this is not a point that is told in many books or somewhere else, but I mean I think it's actually very obvious. It laid the foundation of the central administrative system in India. So this was the first time when the central administrative system was actually put into place in India. And what is central administrative system? Central administrative system means like there's a center and everything is connected to it. So the main force is the center. Like this, let me show you. So this is like a single line of unit, and then there are several branches that come from out of it. I think you know already what central administrative system is. So there's a branch working here, there's a branch working here, and they all report to one single branch, one single head branch that is here. So this is central administrative system, that there is a center that the main administration is in the center of all things, or all of these things are actually connected to one center. You can say that all the different systems, all the different offices, they are all connected to one central unit. This is the central administrative system. I think it's very obvious, so we don't need to go into detail in this. Moving on, now let's discuss what the features of the company of the regulating act are. First, designated Governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal. Now I need to tell you this beforehand. I think we need to discuss it before that. This here is the, let's say, Bengal Providency. This here is the Bihar Providency. Okay, and this here, let's say, is the this is the Bombay. This is the Bombay Presidency, and this here is the Madras Providency. Okay, so at that time Bengal constituted of both Bihar and Orissa. At that time Bengal had both Bihar and Orissa under it, and this is exactly the reason why the Nawabs of Bihar, Orissa and Bengal got together to form the company, because practically Bengal was the ruler of Bihar and Orissa also. But the Mughal Empire had become so weak that the Bihar and Orissa provinces started declaring their independence. They started neglecting the rules of the orders that came from Bengal. But still they were together, so they thought that why not get together once more and try to fight the British. Okay, so we know now that this is Bihar. Just a second. Yeah, so this here is Bengal. Gosh, my writing. Bengal, and this is, let's say, Madras here, and this is here Bombay. So what the thing is that the company had established its dominance in all these three places, 1, 2 and 3, and the company set up separate branches in here, separate branch for Bengal, separate branch for Bombay, and separate branch for Madras. So they weren't considered a part of whole India. Let's say that they were considered separate countries, or you can say that they were considered separate states. Let's say they were considered separate states, and just like in today's time we have a chief minister, right? For each state we have a chief minister. So in the same way the company set up its branches in all of these three provinces, and the head of the branch was, and the topmost supermost head of each of the branches was called its governor. So the company basically had three governors in India: the governor of Madras, the governor of Bombay, and the governor of Bengal. And all of these governors had equal power. Like in today's time all the chief ministers are equal, right? Every state's chief minister is equal. It's not like that the chief minister of Maharashtra is superior to the chief minister of Haryana, or the chief minister of Haryana will be superior to the chief minister of Rajasthan, or the chief minister of Gujarat, or something like that. All the chief ministers are equal, like they all have equal powers, like, right? I mean, the thing is different, that the states have different powers in them, or the states can be compared in a different way. Like Bombay could be a richer state than Haryana, or Haryana could be a more agriculturally yieldable state than Rajasthan, or something like that. But in the eyes of the constitution, or in the eyes of the Indian political system, all the chief ministers have same powers, they are equal. In the same way the governor, the company which is actually sitting here in London, the company is here in London. Gosh, I don't have a stylus. If I had a stylus, things would be really more easy. So the company is here sitting in London, and the company appoints, and the company has now three territories. The company has acquired three territories now, of Bombay, Madras and Bengal. And in each territory the company has set up its own branches, and the branch head, the main head of all of every branch is called the governor. And now what is the work of this governor is, now obviously the company has set up its branches, but what these branches are doing is not just trading but also ruling over the area. So the governor of Bengal is actually the supreme ruler of Bengal. The governor of Bombay is actually now the supreme ruler of Bombay. Obviously all three of these still fall under the jurisdiction of the main company, but in their respective areas they are the topmost heads, they are the governors. Like governor means he is actually governing that area, in reality practically governing that area. So his work is not just limited to trading or handling the company's perspectives. Like he can actually govern that area like our current chief ministers do. But obviously it's not the exact same system. He still had to listen to the company, follow the orders from the company which came from London. But I think you get the gist of the idea. It's not quite easy to explain, but still I hope that you got what I'm trying to say. So now the British government designated the governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal. So now here we have our governor of, so here we had our Bengal. This Bengal, he was called the Governor of Bengal previously. Bombay and Madras are the same. Bombay and Madras are the same. Nobody touched the, I mean for now we're not talking about Bombay and Madras. Just the Governor of Bengal was changed to the Governor General of Bengal. So his title was changed to Governor General of Bengal. Why specifically Bengal? Because Bengal at that time was a huge presidency. Bengal had vast territory and it yielded so much profit. Like it was the most profitable state for the East India Company. So the title of Bengal governor was changed to the Governor General of Bengal, and for him was created an executive council. An executive council was created for him. Executive council is nothing but a council. It is a council that helps him in taking in executing the acts or regulations or whatever are passed down from the company. The council will talk about it, discuss on it, and help him effectively execute those functions. So this executive council was of 4. It consisted of 4 people. Bengal presidency was officially known. One more point to notice here is that Bengal presidency, I mean it wasn't Bengal presidency exactly. I mean it was Bengal presidency of course, but its official name was different. So its official name was Presidency of Fort William. Why? Because the British had their the British resided, or you can say in Bengal, the British lived in a kind of fort. The East India Company had its headquarters in a fort, and that fort was named as Fort William. My drawings. Damn, curse me. So this fort was known as Fort William. So the area of Bengal was actually not called Bengal. It was called Fort William. And in the same way, Bengal Presidency was officially in papers known as Presidency of Fort William. And this fort was actually in Calcutta. So the British had their headquarters in Calcutta. Now we talked about an executive council, an executive council for the Governor General of Bengal. Governor General of Bengal. Now this act also established executive councils for the other presidencies also. It means that the governor of Bombay and the governor of Madras, they also had an executive council after this act. But we'll only be talking about or discussing about the executive council of the Governor General of Bengal, because he's the main character, he's the hero, he's the protagonist here. So the Governor General of Bengal had a council of 4 people. Nobody tells you the name of what these 4 people are. I've already written it in the notes. I don't think it will be that important though, but still I hope you do remember them. Keep them in mind. And the first Governor General of Bengal was obviously Warren Hastings. Now I'll also tell you how to remember these names, how you will never forget these names and easily remember them in any kind of situation. So let's say, like, sometimes we remember all the names, all the dates, and everything is clear in our head, but then suddenly due to extreme pressure or nervousness we start forgetting things, right? So I'll give you a very good method to how you can remember these names. So the first Governor General of Bengal was who? Was Warren Hastings, right? Warren Hastings. So what do you know the meaning of haste, right? Haste means jaldi, fast, like he has some kind of he's in a hurry. So you can say that haste, that Warren Hastings was in haste of becoming the Governor General of Bengal, that he was in haste of उसे वो जल्दी में था गवर्नर जनरल बनने की. So in this manner you can remember that Warren Hastings. Haste means, from haste you can remember Hastings. So this was the first post created by the British. So you remember that the first post created by the British government was the Governor General of Bengal, and everyone was in haste of becoming the Governor General of Bengal. And in this haste, Warren Hastings became the Governor General of Bengal. Right? In this haste, Warren Hastings became. So haste and hasting, that's what I'm trying to say, that you can connect haste and hasting and say that Warren Hastings was in a real haste to become the first supermost post that was created by the British government. Okay, moving on. The second point is made the governors of Bengal and Bombay and Madras. So just previously I told you that here is the Bengal Presidency, here is the Bombay Presidency, or here is the Madras Presidency, right? And I told you that the governors were like the chief ministers, and everyone had equal powers, right? Everyone was equal, no one was junior, so no one was subordinate to any others. They all ruled their own states independently of each other, right? But after this regulating act of 1773, it said that the members, or that the governors of Bombay and Madras would be subordinate to that of the Governor General of Bengal. So like they would report to Governor General of Bengal. They were now junior or smaller than the Governor General of Bengal, it said. Then the third point, it established a Supreme Court. Where? At Calcutta. Now the Supreme Court is not very important. You'll know why. We'll be discussing it later. Which had in 1774. Now this was established in not 1773 but in 1774. Again, let me tell you, I know my handwriting is really, really poor, but you don't need to worry, because you don't need to take any notes of any of this. I've already formulated, I've already written all the detailed notes that could be possibly made out of all this, and you will just directly have them in the description box. If you wish, you can just give me a thank you in the comment section, that's all. and you can just carefully and very thoroughly read the notes and remember every bit of it, because every bit of it is important. Okay, so moving on, this was established in 1774 and it had one Chief Justice. It comprised of one CJ, only CJ, not CJI, not Chief Justice of India, only Chief Justice. Chief Justice plus three more judges, three simple judges. There were three judges. So there was one CJ, Chief Justice, and three judges. So it comprised of a total of 4 judges. Okay, this Supreme Court, which was established at Calcutta. The Supreme Court was in no way similar to our Supreme Court, like our current Supreme Court. This was simply, you can say, a bigger court. Like there were some, like this, you can say this was the main court. There were several providence courts, there were federal courts, smaller courts, but this was the main court. And it officially made any private trade or bribery by the servants of the company as illegal. So up before now, the company was taking bribery. The company was full of exploitations and all that, and the company would often bribe the Indian officials or take bribe from them for getting any work done. But after this, bribery was officially made illegal, that if any servant of the company was found taking bribery, then he would be subjected to, I don't know what subjected to, but he would definitely be punished. The thing is that bribery was now illegal. Before this, everyone was taking bribery openly. Nobody cared about who took bribe or who didn't. It wasn't like you would be punished for taking bribes. But from now on, like there was set a particular rule that for taking bribe, this punishment would be given, something like that. So the thing is that bribery was made illegal from now on. Okay, again, then moving on. Required the Court of Directors to report on its revenue, civil and military affairs in India to the British government. So now it required that here the point is, it strengthened the control of the British government over the company by requiring the Court of Directors to report on its revenue, civil and military affairs in India. So now before this, obviously, like I have a company, so I can do whatever I want in the company. I don't need to report to anyone about my business. Like in today's time, obviously some companies do have to, or I think all companies have to report to the government about their revenues and all that. But at that time, the company did its work independently. It didn't have to report to anyone, anything, any government. It just had to pay the monopoly tax or the sum of money to maintain the monopoly to trade with India to the British government. Right, but from now on, the British government told the Court of Directors that from now on you will have to give us you will have to provide us with the report on your revenue that is concerned with money, civil and military affairs in India. That whatever you are doing in India, every operation, every single thing that you are doing in India, you have to report about it to us. You have to give a detailed report, submit a detailed report to the British government. Who were the Court of Directors? Now discussing the Court of Directors. The Court of Directors was actually the governing body of the East India Company, which comprised of 24 members elected individually for 4 years. So these Court of Directors did not sit in India. These Court of Directors actually sat in London or wherever the main headquarters of the company were, and they were the people who actually made the company. You can say that they were the major shareholders of the company. And like in today's time, the actual people who own the Google company are its major shareholders, right? Who actually own the company. So you can say in a way that these were the owners of the company, and they took every decision whatever the company did worldwide. Their headquarters were in Leadenhall Street, London, and they are also the ones who appointed the Governor General of Bengal. This is a point to be noted, that the Governor General of Bengal was not appointed by the British government but by the Court of Directors. So these Court of Directors were private people. They were not connected with the British government. They were just private individuals who happened to own this company and who managed this company. And now they were supposed to give a detailed report to the British government. Now moving on to the second act, Amending Act of 1781. This was also known as the Act of Settlement. Now this act was to pass, as it is already written here, to rectify any defects or any faults that was left in the previous act. Okay, so now let's add the second page to it. I think this is it. This must be the second page, has to be, ma'am. Yeah, this looks like the second page. Let me zoom on it for a minute so that you can later stop it and read its contents. So from here, okay, I guess it's done now. You can easily read what this page says. You can stop the video and read the page before if you want to, or later maybe. So what this act did is that this act was passed to amend any defects or faults of the 1773 Act. I am not reading from the book again, I am reading from my notes. First point, exempted all the members of the company from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court for tasks done in their official capacity. So it officially said that any person of the company, for whatever he did, whatever he does, in his official capacity, like in an official manner, or like they send it. No matter how the company works, the company can work independently on its own. It does not need to follow any law, or it does not need to adhere by any order. The company is freely independent of the Supreme Court. No, like you can say that the company's operations cannot be challenged in the Supreme Court. The company can pass any law that the company can plunder or attack people. The company can attack people. The company can just kill people. They can arrest people. They can do anything, and their actions cannot be challenged in the Supreme Court. They are not barred by the Supreme Court. Moving on to the second point, excluded all matters related to revenue from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Any matter that is related to revenue, that is related to money, is excluded from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court cannot file hearings, cannot listen to hearings that are based on the revenue. Third point is, it provided that all the inhabitants of Calcutta were to fall under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. So it said that all the people of Calcutta were under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. They can go to Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court can issue any rules or regulations against the people of this Calcutta, or the Supreme Court could issue any punishments for any person that is living in Calcutta, except of course the company and its officials. So like obviously the people that are left are the inhabitants of Calcutta, the colonized people, our Indian people, and maybe some people who had come from Britain to live in Calcutta. These people also. It also required the administration of the personal law of defendants, that is Hindus to be tried according to Hindu law, Muslims according to Mohammedan law, and so on. So it said that all the subjects would be tried according to their own respective laws. So like there's you can say that, let's say that there's a case in Supreme Court that a husband beat her wife very brutally. Okay, so the wife goes to court and files a hearing against the husband. So obviously the court would say that the husband cannot beat the wife, right? This is a fact. That the court would obviously will not approve of it. But let's say that the Hindu law says that husband is the owner of the wife, or husband has supreme authority over the wife. So this means that the husband can definitely beat his wife. So according to the Hindu law, the husband is not guilty, and the Supreme Court will have to follow their laws, their religious laws. So obviously the Supreme Court would have to consider the husband non-guilty and let him go. So this is the case, that they were to be tried according to their personal laws. In the same way, giving the same example, let's say there's a Muslim couple and the wife files a complaint against the husband, and the husband wants to marry once more, that he wants to have one more wife, and that the woman is against it. But according to the Muslim law, according to the Mohammedan law, the Muslim religious laws, according to the Muslim religion, the husband can have several wives, right? So again the court will have to consider the husband non-guilty, that if the husband wants to have more wives, then the woman cannot object to it, because according to the Mohammedan law, or according to the Muslim religious culture, the husband has a right to do this. Fourth is, it laid down that appeals from provincial courts to be taken to Governor General in Council. Provincial courts are the smaller courts, the local courts, you can say, local courts. So any appeal in our current time, any appeal from the lower courts can be taken to the higher courts, from the provincial courts. The appeal can be sent to the high court. From the high court, it can be sent to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court does the final justice. But this act said that the appeals from the lower courts would not be taken to the Supreme Court, but in fact they would be taken to the Governor General in Council. Governor General in Council. Now let me tell you what Governor General in Council is. This is nothing but actually just it's very simple to understand what a Governor General in Council is. So this was the Governor General, right? Plus this was his 4 executive members. He had a council of executive members, right? Of 4 executive members. So when the Governor General is sitting by himself, when the Governor General is taking, you can say that there are some cases where the Governor General can take decision by himself, right? There are several cases which are obviously written in detail in the official documents, or according to the cases it may differ. But the thing is that in some cases the Governor General can act by himself, and in some other cases or in some other matters the Governor General need to sit with his executive council and take decisions with their advice. Like all of them will sit together, and only then can they take this decision. Okay, so in this first case so in the first case the Governor General can take decisions by himself. In the second case, the Governor General plus the council needs to be together in order to take the decision. So in the second case, where the Governor General and the council is together, at that time the Governor General is nothing. The Governor General is referred to as Governor General in Council. That is, Governor General with his council or in his council. That the Governor General is hearing this case or is forming decision on this matter in the presence of his council, with his council, and on their advice. He is obviously not forced to take their advice, but still he is taking a collective decision. You can say that this is a collective decision by the Governor General and his council, and when this collective decision is taking place, at that time the Governor General is referred to as only Governor General in Council. So by saying Governor General in Council, it means to say that this case must be presented to the Governor General and to his executive council. It means that the Governor General cannot take independent decision on this case, and he must sit with his council in order to talk about his decision. So this is why they've said that the Governor General in Council. That is Governor General of Bengal when he was administering justice with his executive council and not to the Supreme Court. So they're saying that you cannot take cases from the lower courts to Supreme Court, and in fact you take the case to the Governor General of Bengal. Okay, this is very ridiculous in today's time, but at that time this was the rule. It basically stated that the provincial courts were independent of the Supreme Court and did not fall under its jurisdiction. Fifth point is empower the Governor General in Council, again in Council, that is with his council, to frame regulations from the provincial courts and councils. So it is saying that it gave power to the Governor General to form rules, to make rules or regulations for provincial, for smaller courts and smaller councils. Provincial councils are the Council of Bengal and Madras. Now obviously because the Governor General of Bombay and Madras. Now this is obvious, since the Governor General of Bengal is the supreme authority, so obviously and his council is the supermost council, is the Supreme Council. So all the other councils, that is the councils of the Governor of Bombay and Madras, they are smaller council or provincial councils. And that is why it is saying that this gives the Governor General the ability or the power, the authority to form laws or regulations for those smaller councils, for those provincial councils, but only in the presence of his own executive council, only upon the advice, or only on and or he can discuss these issues only in the presence of his executive council. It means that he cannot form the decisions by himself and must sit and talk it over with his council, with his own executive council. That's why again he is referred to as Governor General in Council here. So Governor General in Council, I've already written what Governor General in Council is in the detailed notes. So when the Governor General of Bengal sits with his executive council and operates with the help of their advice, he is referred to as Governor General in Council. I think this is already very clear. I'm just trying to explain it in as much depth as I can, but it obviously I cannot explain it to you completely, like word by word. So I hope you get the idea of what it means. Then our third act, this is the third act that comes now. It's called the Pitt's India Act of 1784, or also known as the East India Company Act 1784. This act is named after the British Prime Minister William Pitts the Younger. This was his complete name, William Pitts the Younger. So the first point is it distinguished or it's already written here. Pitt's India Act is already here. So its point is that it distinguished or differentiated between the commercial and political functions of the company. So obviously now, up until now, the commercial and political functions of the company were considered in one, like the same people were handling both the political work also and the commercial work also, right? The same person was handling the political work and the commercial work, but this time they created a separate division that these sets of people will handle the commercial work and these sets of people will handle the political work. The company's territories in India were called British possessions in India. So slowly the British government is taking over control of India from the company. Now Britain sees that we can't handle the whole country. We can't give a whole country to the company, right? The country needs to be handled by us, needs to be handled by a country, needs to be governed by us and not by this company. In this way, the company can suddenly become independent or so much powerful that they can that they will get out of our grasp. And this is a very golden moment, golden chance to grab a country, to expand Britain's territory. So why not use it? So the company, the British government is slowly trying to take over the country or the territories for itself. And this is why this act was passed. This act officially said that all the company's territories which are in India are British possessions in India, are the possessions of Britain. And by Britain it means British government, of course. British government given supreme control over companies' affairs and administration in India. So now it has already done it, what it has been trying to do. Now British government says that we will dictate you what to do in India. You cannot do anything in India by yourself. It means obviously whatever you are doing, you can continue in doing, but you must follow our every order. We will tell you what exactly to do in India and how to do things, and you will have to follow it exactly like that, right? So before, the company was ruling independently, and from time to time the British government would pass some orders, would give some instructions to the company, and the company would obviously have to follow them. But this time it said that now we are taking charge of India and we will rule India through you. So it says, I've written in my notes, this means that from now on the company did not have any autonomy over its affairs in India. Rather, it will be working according to the instructions received from the British government. It sort of became an instrument of British government to preside over India. This was the time when India was officially made a colony of Britain, though it was not declared so. So, like, officially, I'm by saying that if it was officially made a colony, though it was not declared so. By this I means that the word colony was not used for India officially, but still, through official documents, through official orders, the territories of India were actually handed over to the British government, though the actual word colony was not used. Then the fourth point is, It formed a new body known as Board of Control that was to preside over Court of Directors. So before we had our Court of Directors, which were the supreme rulers of the company, right? But from through this act, the British government forms a new body, a new group of members who were known as the Board of Control, and they were higher than the Court of Directors. I'm just trying to explain it in simplest way, simplest language that I can. But still, if you have any questions, and I think that there may be lots of, you can always write them down in the comment section and try my best to explain them through video or through in the comment itself. Then fifth point is, it established a form of dual government. It ordered the Court of Directors to handle the company's commercial affairs and Board of Control to manage political affairs. Like in the first point, I told you that the government now separated the functions of the company from and political and commercial functions. So of course, like I told you that previously the same persons who were handling the commercial affairs were also handling the political affairs. But obviously now, since there would be since the functions are differentiated, so we would need new people to handle those affairs, right? Now we will need a new set of people to handle the differentiated affairs. So some people will now need to handle the political affairs, and some other people will need to handle the commercial affairs. So the commercial affairs are obviously given to the company, but the political affairs from now on would be taken care of by the body of control. And this body of control was not constituted by the company, it was constituted by the British government. Up until now, everything was made by the company, but now there was this new separate body which was created by the British government, named as Board of Control. And sorry, I haven't written how many members or everything else about or anything else about the Board of Control, but I highly recommend you that you do check how many members the Board of Control had and who were its first members and how were they elected and so on. And Board of Control to manage political affairs, supervise and direct all operations, the civil and military government or revenues of British possessions in India. Now next comes our Act of 1786. Here is our Act of 1780. Wait, yes, 1786 is here. It's very small. So it's not exactly an act. I mean, this is an act, but this was only mainly to appease the wishes of Lord Cornwallis. Who was Lord Cornwallis? Lord Cornwallis was actually a military person from Britain who had surrendered in the American War of Independence and now was asked to become the Governor General of Bengal. But he had two, you can say, requirements that he made to the British government, that if you fulfill these two requirements of mine, these two demands, or then I will become the Governor General of Bengal. And what were these two demands? These were, Lord Cornwallis, appointed as the Governor General of Bengal in 1786, had two demands to accept the post. This act was enacted to make both these provisions, which were these two demands were, he be given the power to override the decision of his council in special cases, that in special cases, that if my executive council thinks something else but I want something else, so in this case, let's say that the council has majority, so obviously that rule would be applied, that decision would be taken, that decision would take place. So I want a veto power. I want that if I do not want some particular rule to come into place, then it should be so. Then that rule should not be applied. Even if all of the council wants that rule to be applied, I should have the power to withhold the council's decision. I should have the power to override the council's decision and say that no, if I do not want, then this rule is not to be applied. The second power he wanted was that he would be the commander of chief of all the British Army of India, including army members who are not British. So he wanted, obviously he was a military military officer, right? A high-ranking military officer. So he said that I want the control of all the army that we have in India, Britain's army, which also included the Indian soldiers, that is the sepoys. Then came the Charter Act of 1793. I think we'll take just a little bit of break here and then we'll continue with Charter Act. So the Charter Act of 1793 extended the veto power given to Lord Cornwallis to all the future Governor Generals and Governors of Presidencies. So what it basically did is that it gave this power, this veto power that was originally given to Claude Cornwallis to all the future governor generals for their own executive councils, and to all the governors also, governors of Bombay and Madras, to for them to use in their executive council, because they had their own providential legislative councils too, right? They had their own legislative councils too, and now they could also exercise this power in their own executive councils. The governors of Bombay and Madras had their own executive councils, just like the Governor General of Bengal had. Second point is, gave the Governor General of Bengal more power over the subordinate presidencies. So it gave some more powers. We don't know what exactly these powers are, though I would recommend you to search it up, look into its depth as much as you can. More power over the subordinate presidencies, namely that of Bombay and Madras. Third point is, it extended, this is one of the main points again, it extended the company's trade monopoly in India for another 20 years. Okay, so through this act they extended the company's trade monopoly. So up even until now, no other British company can trade in India. Commander is commander-in-chief not to be a member of Governor General's Council unless so appointed. So now this act only gave the veto power, only it extended the veto power to all the future Governor Generals of Bengal, but not the commander-in-chief post, right? The commander-in-chief has to be some separate person, and he cannot be the same person who is also council member of the Governor General of Bengal. Right, so no person who is a member of the Governor General of Bengal's council can be the commander of chief unless he is directly appointed. So unless he is through some bill or through some act specifically appointed from the council of the Governor General to be the commander in chief. Fifth point is, board of control and its staff to be paid out of Indian revenue. So up until now, the British government were paying them from Britain's fund, but now they said that whatever revenue we collect from India, out of it, some portion of it would be given to the members of the board of control as their salary. Now moving on, we get to the Charter Act of 1813. So we've discussed Charter Act of 1793 here, now it's Charter Act 1813. Again, I'm reading from my personal notes. First is, abolished companies' trade monopoly in India except for tea. So it abolished the company's trade monopoly with India, but it did not abolish the company's trade monopoly in tea, and it did not abolish the company's trade monopoly in China in anything. So its trade monopoly with China was as it is, and its trade monopoly in India was as it is only in tea. And now the portion of India, these Indian territories were thrown open to all the British companies. And why was this so? This point is important as to why was the company's trade monopoly abolished. Why? The main reason for this is the company's monopoly was abolished due to Napoleon Bonaparte's continental blockade, also known as continental system. It was first used by Napoleon himself against the British Empire to weaken its power and influence and to crush it economically. Now, what is continental blockade? I think you can find separate videos on continental blockade all over the YouTube, but still I've explained it here. It is the act or method of banning or blocking the import of goods from a particular country or countries or state or any particular area to several countries or a very large scale of area. So you can say that it is the method of banning, you can say banning or stopping the importing of goods from a specific country to a large scale of area, so that country becomes economically weak. Because if that country is not able to acquire foreign wealth, then obviously the company sort of becomes very weak. It cannot sustain on its own wealth. It needs services and wealth and monetary help from other countries, right? Like India exports goods to a lot of country, but let's say tomorrow America says that that entire America and all the American allies will stop buying anything from India. So now India is able to manufacture things. India is able to create things, but but all of these resources get utilized within India, right? But we need external cash. We need cash from other countries. We need support from other countries also to sustain ourselves. Okay, because not everything can be manufactured in India. Not everything can be manufactured in India, right? So we need to buy things from other countries as well. But if we do not have their currency, then we cannot buy those things. Let's say that India manufactures a specific kind of bottle. No, not specific kind. Let's say, for a convenience sake, let's say that India is the first country that manufactures bottle, or let's say India manufactures a huge amount of bottles or very good bottles, and they sell these bottles to let's say China. They sell these bottles to China, and Chinese people sell very beautiful and very good glasses, very good, beautiful and sturdy glasses. And India needs those glasses, and China needs those bottles. So they have a fair going on. So China buys India's bottles and pays India in rupees. Okay, in rupees. Obviously, they get all these Chinese money converted into Indian rupees, and then pays the Indians Indian rupees. And India goes to China and converts Indian rupees into Chinese money. I don't know what it is. I don't remember actually. Into Chinese currency, and then buy those Chinese glasses from Chinese people. It's not like, no, the government does not do it. Several individual traders or group of traders do this. This is nothing to do with the government. It's not like that an agent from the government side goes to China and buy glasses in bulk and then distributes it into Indian traders. Indian traders, they individually, they go to China, they convert their currency into Chinese currency, and then they buy bottles from then they buy glasses from them and come back to India and sell them in India. So India now throughout its continent has very good sale of very good glasses, because India needs glasses in order to pour the liquid from those bottles. But let's say China founds another country who also sells bottle, and now suddenly China starts buying bottle from them. And China also says that any country who is our ally should not buy bottles from India. So suddenly our bottles are not being sold, right? So if we cannot sell our bottles, then we cannot then we won't be able to have currency, right? We won't be able to, like, there's a demand in India for these bottles, but this demand will at some point of time, this demand will be covered up. Then we won't be able to sell any more bottles, and therefore we won't be able to acquire any more cash, right? Any more currency. And if we do not have currency or cash, if we do not have money, then we cannot cannot change it into another country's currency and buy things from them, which we need. So if I go and start to explaining it, it will go in very deep, in very depth, about how currency is made and how a country's currency is monetary value is established and all that thing. It goes very deep. So basically the thing is that Napoleon Bonaparte said that France, because he was the ruler of France, and France's allies, because he had won over, he had acquired lots of territories. So he said that all the territories that I have acquired, and all the allies that are of these territories, they will stop buying anything from Britain. So Britain was now in a very desperate situation. So the British traders could not sell their goods outside or in Europe. They did not have in contact with America until now, and in Africa also there was not so much good trade. So now they could not sell their products anywhere in Europe. So they approached the British government, they approached the monarchs, and they requested that please allow us to trade in India, in the Indian eastern countries, because we are not able to sell our goods in Europe. So we will be crushed. I mean, we will. I can't form the words, but the thing is that if we won't be able to go on with our trade, then all of our trade will be finished. Okay, we'll go on the street, so all of our trade would be finished. So please allow us to now go to India to sell our products. In this way we can sustain ourselves. So the British monarch thinks that, yeah, they are saying the right thing. It's perfectly true that if they are not able to sell, then our country's economic system will collapse, in fact. Not just these individual traders, because these individual traders actually form a major part of a company's financial and economic system. So if they collapse, if their businesses crash down, so will our economic system. So it says that now we'll abolish East India Company's monopoly, and you go there and trade in India. asserted the sovereignty of the British Crown over the company's territories in India. So it once again said that all the territories in India are the British government and not the companies. So whatever we order you to do, you will have to do it. It again asserted it. Sovereignty means supreme power or authority. Third point is it allowed the Christian missionaries to come to India to enlighten people of India. So now it allowed the Christian, up until now no Christians could come to India, and no Christian missionaries, it means members of the church, could come to India to propagate their religion. But from now on it said that you can go to India and propagate your religion, tell people about your religion, spread it, go there. Fourth point is provided for the spread of Western education among the colonized parts. So this was the first time when they actually brought out an act which said that you need to now educate Indians. You need to think about their education. You need to impart into them Western education, Western ideas, Western culture. So in a form, in a manner of, you can say in a sense, the British government started spreading Western culture in India. This was the start of Western culture in India. The Charter Act of 1813 was. It authorized local governments to impose taxes and punish non-payers. So up until now, all the taxes were directly going to the company, and the company would then handle those taxes or do whatever they want with them. But now it gave the local rulers like our Nawabs and all the smaller rulers, that you can impose your own taxes. You can have taxes for yourself now. You impose separate taxes that are your own income, that you have for yourself. Okay, so it means that the peasant class was going to be crushed brutally, because now peasants will have to give double taxes, first for the Britishers and second for the local rulers, because they also want some extra cash now. So sixth point is company shareholders. So up until now the company shareholders received a dividend of 12.5%. It's a sum of money that the company gives to its shareholders every year, or I think every month it is something. But dividend is actually the sum of money. But and now this dividend is actually very simple concept. I just forgot about what it is right now, so you can just check it out on internet. It's related to stock marketing and that and all that. So it's very basic and very simple concept. You can easily understand it through any single video. So this dividend was cut down from 12.5% to 10.5%. Seventh point is the sum of 1 lakh rupees to be set aside for the revival, promotion, and encouragement of literature, learning, and science among the natives every year. So every year the company will have to spend 1 lakh rupees on Indian education. Education in India was with the sole motive of assimilating Indians into the Western cultures so that it would become easier to rule them. So it's not like they are thinking for Indians' sake and colonized people's sake that we need to educate them. Just like Britishers often like to say that we ruled other lands, we colonized people so that we can make them, so we can impart into them education and you can say gentle manners. We can impart into them some higher purpose. We can make them from savages to gentlemen. British often like to say this, but the thing is that they only did this so that it becomes easier to rule India, so that the communication gap gets filled up and it becomes easy to rule over India. Eighth point is records of commercial revenues and territorial revenues to be separated. So up until now, all the revenue that came from the land, the taxes, that is the taxes and the commercial revenue, the money that was obtained through commercial activities, that was taken into one account. But now they would be separated. There would be a separate register for all the commercial revenue, the money obtained from commercial activities, and a separate register for taxes, for the money gained through tax, because the company was doing dual work of ruler and of trader, right? So whatever they traded, they received money from that, and as a ruler also they could impose taxes, so they received money as in the form of tax too, right? Earlier the money obtained from commercial activities of the company and the money collected in the form of tax was included in one single account. Now moving on to, so this covers up your Charter Act of 1830. Let me add it again. Oh, where did it go? My god, where is it? Sorry, I think I need to refresh it. but I'll just read it from here. The Charter Act of 1833 was also known as the Government of India Act 1833. So what were its features? Its features were, first, it designated here it is. Yeah. It designated the Governor General. Now this is an important point. It designated the Governor General of Bengal as the Governor General of India. So it said that from now on the Governor General of Bengal will be the Governor General of India. Wait, this is the crown rule. From here on starts the crown rule. So we need to go a little bit further. Images. Let me just stop it for. Okay, so now I'll just stop at these pages so you can stop the video and read the text, the actual text from the book. From here. Okay, right. So moving on to the Charter Act of 1833, also known as Government of India Act 1833, the Governor General of Bengal was designated as the Governor General of India, and he was vested with all the civil and military powers. It means that they actually created in one. Earlier there was like this Governor General of India, GGI. This here is Governor General of India. He has all the civil powers, right? And then here was this Commander in Chief, right, who had all the military powers. Now they concluded them both into one single piece that is known as the Governor General of India. So Governor General of India, GGI, right? Like I told you, Lord Cornwallis had actually similar powers to that of Governor General of India. He was not given the title Governor General of India, but whatever powers the Lord Cornwallis had, the Governor General of India would have the same power. So they basically combined these two, the powers of the Governor General of India and the powers of Commander in Chief, into one, known as the Governor General of India. So this is not Governor General of India. This is the Governor General of Bengal here. Gosh, drawings is really not my fault. So Governor General of Bengal plus Commander in Chief will form Governor General of India. So he was vested with all the civil and military powers. Lord William Bentinck, so you can remember his name, who was the first Governor General of India. Let's remember it through this. Let's say that there is a column of Governor General of India and Lord William Bentinck was the first person to tick it. So Bentinck tick. So he ticked the column of Governor General of India. Who ticked? William Bentinck. So William Bentinck ticked the Governor General of India column. Government run by Governor General of India was referred to as Government of India. This was for the first time that there was any reference made of Government of India. Okay. I think I will erase it. So this was the first time that ever any reference were made for the Governor General of India and his council. His executive council. If you remember, he had an executive council. This executive council was called Indian Council. Not Indian, I think India Council. It's written India Council here. So I think it was probably India Council or Indian Council. There's a confusion. So if you can find it somewhere, please do tell me in the comment section too. Second point is, it deprived the governors of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. So earlier you remember that the governors of Bombay and Madras could make laws from their own presidencies. They had their own executive councils also. But through this act, it removed their executive councils and it abolished their power of forming laws for their presidencies. The Governor General of India vested with supreme legislative powers over entire British India. So now the Governor General of India was the only person who could make laws for Bombay, for Madras, for Bengal, all of them. Earlier the Governor General of Bengal could make laws only for Bengal, but he had some other powers over the other two governors. But this time the Governor General of India had complete power over all the territories of India. He was the sole person. He would form all the laws for all over the land. Like if he said that from tomorrow there will be no cycles sold in India, then there will be no cycles sold in Bengal, Bombay and Madras. Earlier he could only say that there would be no cycles sold in Bengal. As the Governor General of Bengal, he could only his powers were limited to his legislature powers. His powers to form laws, form acts were only limited to Bengal. But now his power was expanded over to Bombay and Madras too. He could make laws for Bombay and Madras too. The laws made under previous acts, now this is just a change of name here, the laws made under previous acts to be known as regulations, while laws made under this act to be known as acts. So any act that will be any act, and again there's so many act in here, so any acts that were made before this Charter Act of 1833, they would be known as regulations, and any act made under Charter Act of 1833 and all the others, and all the other upcoming laws, all of them would be known as acts. Fourth, it ended the commercial activities of East India Company, leaving it as a purely administrative body. So it said that from now on, English East India Company will not do any trade business. It is finished. It is not a company anymore, but now it is an administrative body. Now it will rule on behalf of the British government. Up until now, too, Governor General of India, I don't think Governor General of India was appointed by the British government. I think it was appointed by the company still. But I didn't cover this topic in detail. I'm really sorry for that. I should have done it. Now that I'm explaining so many things, so many more things are coming into my mind. And it also said that provided that companies' territories in India were held by it, in trust of His Majesty, his heirs and successors. So it says that all the company's territories are in the name of the British government. They belong to the British government, to the monarch of Britain and his successors. And the company is just an instrument. It officially said now that the company is only an instrument through which we are ruling over Indian people. And in reality, the land of India belongs to the monarch of England. Not England, sorry, Britain. It introduced system of open competition for selection of civil servants. So in Indian civil services, only Britishers were allowed to take part. Only Britishers could sit in the examination for Indian civil services. But now they said that even Indians can come here. Even Indians can sit for Indian civil services examination. But this rule was later removed because the court of directors negated it. They were against it. They protested against it. It also stated that Indians should not be debarred from holding any place, office or employment under the company. Now this rule was also again repealed. This did not come into practice because the court of directors refused to follow it. Then finally comes our last act, that is last Charter Act, the Charter Act of 1853. So this was the last Charter Act. First point, separated for the very first time legislative and executive functions of the Governor General's Council. So before this, the Governor General had power over all the civil servants, and it was a form of legislative body also. But from now on, it said that you will only do legislative work, and executive work will be given to someone else. Like they were the people who were, you can say that the Council of the Governor General was kind of civil servants who were also participating in making rules. Okay, so just imagine from today onwards that all the district collectors start participating in the legislatures of our ministers. So it was like the same thing. So they were actually civil servants who were also participating in the legislative activities. From now on, they said that this will not happen. These two functions will be separated. It also provided for an addition of 6 new members. It said that there will be 6 new members in this separated legislative council, in the legislative council of the Governor General of India. So in this new council that will be given to the Governor General of India, there will be 6 new members. And I think they said that 4 of them would be Indian. 4 or 5 or how many? I think if I remember correctly, there are 4. 4 will be Indian out of it. And this council will be known as Indian Central Legislative Council. So it would be known as the Indian Legislative Council, the Central Council for India. It introduced once again open competition in civil services and all other coordinated services. So this act also said that from now on, no matter what the court of director says, we won't listen to the court of director. From now on, there is open competition in the civil services. Anyone can apply for the Indian civil services. And who was the first civil servant? He was Satyendranath Tagore, if I remember it correctly. He was the brother of Rabindranath Tagore. Civil services were divided into two parts. At that time, civil services had two parts, which were coordinated civil services and uncoordinated civil services. Coordinated civil services consisted of British civil servants occupying higher posts in the government. The uncoordinated civil services were introduced to facilitate the entry of Indians at the lower rung of the administration. So coordinated means higher civil services, and uncoordinated basically means lower civil services. And higher civil services were only for British people, only for Britishers, and lower civil services were open for Indians. But now they said that even higher civil services is also open for Indian people if they can enter into it through the examination. If they can successfully pass the examinations, then they can also sit for the higher civil services. They can also get appointed in higher civil services. Fourth point, the Macaulay Committee, the Committee on the Indian Civil Services, was appointed in 1854. So this Macaulay Committee was appointed in 1854, which decided all the rules and how the examinations of the civil services will take place, how the promotions will happen, how they would be posted at different places. Fifth point is it extended Britain's rule over India through the company without specifying the time limit. So again, it extended the time period the company could rule over India, but it did not like previously they were extending it by 20 years, but they were saying that they are actually extending the monopoly for trade in India. So obviously indirectly the monopoly over trade in India indirectly increased the time spent that the company could rule over India politically too. But this time they only said that we are only increasing the company's political rule over India, but they did not specify any time for how long. So it basically meant that they could remove the company, the whole of the company, they could scrap the complete company out of India anytime, or if they wished they could still rule through the company if they wanted to. Sixth point is introduce local representation for the first time in the Indian Legislative Council. Now here is the point. Of the 6 new members in the Legislative Council, 4 were to be appointed by the provincial local governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal and Agra each. So this new, we talked about in the first point that there would be a new Legislative Council for the Governor General of India, and there would be 6 new members in it. And out of these 6 new members, 4 would be Indian, and they would be appointed from the governments of, they would be appointed by the provincial governments of Madras, Bombay, Bengal, India. So each one of them had to be from Madras, one from Madras, one from Bombay, one from Bengal, and one would be from Agra. So this is our end of the company rule, all the acts that were placed under the company rule. In the next video, part 2, we will discuss about the crown rule and all the acts that were placed in India during the crown rules. Thanks a lot, and do remember to write your doubts and any queries that you have in the comment section, and I will definitely reply. And if you want a video on any other specific subject, any other specific topic related to graduation subjects or anything that you wish for me to explain to you, just write it in the comment section.